Welcome to Your Family Dog, a podcast dedicated to helping families love living with dogs.
Welcome back to Your Family Dog podcast. I'm Tina Spring, and I'm joined today by my co-host, Julie Disco Ball Smith, and our guest, Annelise Norman, who I love. You guys get sick of hearing that. And today we're going to talk about getting your first dog. And often here in the town I live in, that happens. It's a college town. So often that's happening with college students, which Annelise still is. And so I thought it would be, she did it really, really great. Like she did a really great job through the whole thing. So I wanted to invite her in to talk about like, hey, you're thinking about getting your first dog and what she feels like she did really great and what maybe she'd change in the future. So as is our typical plan, the first question goes to Julie.
All right, thank you. And Annelise, welcome to Your Family Dog. So glad you're here. Before we go any farther, I want everybody to know that Annelise makes the best snuffle balls and best snuffle mats in the country. And if you need one, we will give you a link to her Etsy store, and we will put a link to it on the website as well. So make sure if you need your snuffle balls, order them early for Christmas. Anyway, so Annelise, what made you decide that while you were busy in school and working part-time that you wanted to get a dog? What was behind the decision there?
Well, I had been I'd always wanted a dog. When I grew up, we had a cat, a family cat, and my mom did everything for our family, and I begged for a puppy when I was probably about 10 years old, and she was like, I'm going to be the one to take care of it. She was absolutely right. We did not get the dog, and years went by. Obviously, I went to college, and then I started grad school, and I was finally in a situation where I had moved to a one-person apartment that was pet friendly, and I didn't have a roommate, and I thought like this is a perfect time. I finally have, time because my schedule with grad school classes had changed. And I was a little bit more like financially able to take on this new adventure. So that's when I fulfilled my 12 years long dream of owning a Corg.
So what made you decide on a Corgi? How did you come to the decision to get a Corgi, which, by the way, I think are wonderful dogs. So I think you made a great choice. But how did you settle on a Corgi?
Thank you. They are indeed wonderful dogs. Actually, I was in the park with my mom when I was 12 years old. We were just, on a casual stroll, and I saw a man coming up at the top of the hill with these two very small potatoes, basically. And they were the happiest looking dogs I'd ever seen in my entire life. They just looked like they were having a ball, and they were so cute, and I'd never seen one before. And so we stopped and talked to him. I got to play with the dogs. He told me they were Corgis. And then I spent the next 10 years Googling Corgi pictures. And whenever I was sad about something, my boyfriend would be like, okay, well, let's look at the Corgi Reddit. They would always cheer me up even before I had one. Then as, time went by and I started to realize this dream could become a reality, I researched them, I researched their temperament, and actually we have some family friends that have cardigan Welsh Corgis. And so I met with them, played with them, and then I got in contact with some Pembroke owners and just did as much research and interaction with the breed as I could before I made the jump.
So what's one thing now that you've had Bean, and you've done a great job raising her up, what's one thing that none of that research prepared you for?
So there are a lot of things, but maybe number one is pet care and nutrition, probably. So barking, the fact that she's a vocal breed and very energetic, I was prepared for. I didn't necessarily know what that was going to look like, but I did kind of know that was something I could expect. But something I didn't expect was the stress that I was going to feel trying to make sure that I was doing the best job I could for her, but with things that were out of my control. So like I didn't understand how to pick a good dog food. I didn't really know the best way to go about choosing a vet, which I can talk about more later on. But really just like getting setting up her like healthcare apparatus was something I knew she was going to need a vet, but I just didn't know how much really needed to go into like choosing the right dog food, taking care of, any sort of like anticipating, medical emergencies and stuff like that. And I think that could apply to anybody, not just a Corgi owner.
Right. I think we all are, especially your generation, which is lovely. Like you guys are big, like independent. I'm going to research and I'm going to know all the things. And I'm old enough to have experienced that you can do all the research in the world. You're just not going to know it all. Like something's going to blindside you. You're just ideally being blindsided by, I don't know, by mostly benign, inconvenient stuff, not big, nasty stuff. Julie, do you have a question?
Well, one of the things I was going to say is, when you are looking for a dog, like with somebody your age, I found it interesting that you decided to go for a purebred. It seems to me there's an awful lot of people wanting to do rescue. Is there a reason why you decided to go with a purebred over a rescue? Did you feel as though you were going to perhaps maybe get a more predictable dog, or what was your thought process there?
In talking to like the family friends that we have that raise the Cardigans, I had actually kind of discussed like, purebred versus like rescue, or mixed breeds. And a lot of it did have to do with like predictability of temperament and also kind of knowing what sort of like genetic complications or anything like that could happen. So we, it could be a little bit easier to diagnose problems, but honestly, at this point, knowing what I know about dogs and having gotten to work with a lot of different dogs, I'd feel more comfortable in like making a decision about like rescuing. But I was a first-time dog owner. I'd only ever like been around friends' dogs and like I had pet sat before, but I just didn't know enough, but I felt like I could research enough and like there was like science or something that would make me feel better about the purebred. But also a lot of it had to do with like just needing a Corgi. And I would not like that was a hole in my heart since I met that man.
Oh, sure. I get that. I get flat-coated retriever holes. And there's a whining clumber hole in my heart right now. Yes, Clemmy. Do you guys hear her? It's kind of like having a water buffalo in my house. I understand the idea of there's a particular dog I really want to try. I think that this is the right dog for me. And so the idea of getting that particular dog, I think, makes a whole lot of sense. So when you were researching, was there anything you found surprising in your research that you didn't expect to find and made you sort of think harder again about getting a dog?
It was definitely like I looked at a lot of how I like try to exert control over my life is through, crazy organization, planning, finances and stuff. So a lot of my research had to do also with just like cost estimations. And so actually I didn't get bean until my second year of grad school. And that's because like I wanted to have a big enough fund that I could pull from, like, not just, the exchange, like, with the breeder, but, vet bills and, like, kind of startup vet bills with all the, like, vaccinations and also supplies and things. So definitely understanding that I needed to be prepared for, it's more than just having a collar and a leash. So making sure that I would have a budget that, I could do food and, the crate and also dog training and stuff like that too. Definitely is I wouldn't call it a hindrance, but there's a reason why, like, I waited a whole year after kind of being in that position where I could have a dog just to make sure that it was going to be feasible. So the cost of things were very surprising to me as a first generation dog owner, and also just as like a college age student that's trying to, kind of independent for the first time and trying to make sense of everything and all the dollars.
Yeah, that's true. I think that the cost of ownership of a dog is surprising. I remember when people will say to me, "Well, I'm thinking about getting a horse for my daughter or whatever," and I'm like, "You do understand that the cost of the horse is about that's the least amount of money that you're going to spend." So, but it's the same kind of thing. Is that you need to understand is that the cost of the dog and the leash and the collar, that's just the beginning, folks. That you need to understand what your monthly budget is going to look like. And that you also have to make sure that you have budgeted in and saved for emergencies. Because it could be that, out of the blue, somebody's going to puncture a paw pad and, need emergency care or swallow something stupid as a puppy. Because, like, none of my dogs would, like, eat boxes of raisins or anything. No!
So, Annelise, did you at any point think about, like, okay, as a first-time dog owner, like, should I maybe foster to see, like, I don't know, kind of like a test fit, knowing full well, having the relief that that an agency is working to find a home for that dog. So if it's not a great fit, it's okay, but you could learn, through kind of benefiting other dogs. Was that something that you considered at any time or no?
So understanding dogs better as I do now, I think that is a fantastic idea. At the time, I never considered it because fear of the unknown and not knowing, what the dog's background was going to be, and me not being equipped with any training knowledge. I read 3 training books and I watched a ton of videos before I got Bean, but I still didn't feel like they're books, it's not actual interaction with them. So I had never had any experience actually training a dog, and managing a dog. So my thinking was, deciding to get a dog from puppy age was that, I would be raising it and I would kind of know it better. Like we would kind of have like almost like that lifelong connection. And I just, my thinking was, like, it's a puppy, we can learn together. But if it was already, a dog with like established habits or whatever, again, I knew nothing about training, that idea, like, I just didn't, it's almost like I felt like they were going to know, like a grown dog was going to know how ill-equipped I was. Like, yeah, this is great. Neither of us knows what's going on. It's awesome. Just as long as I feed her.
So, if there was one thing that you could tell someone who's thinking about getting a puppy or a dog, right? If there was only one thing that you could get them to take away, what do you think it would be?
Sleep. 100% sleep. Like, I have other things that I wish I have, like, things that I wish I knew when I got a puppy. But sleep was the transformative one. And I saw it immediately with Bean. And the more classes I got to observe as an apprentice and help with, like watching those dogs come in the next week, like looking and acting like completely different dogs, and the parents looking like they'd gotten some sleep. Like that's like the very first thing that when any of my friends like have puppies or anything and they're like, oh, this is crazy, I can't do this, I'm just like, so how much is your pupper sleeping?
It's amazing to me that even amongst dog trainers, right? I'm on a bunch of dog training forums. Everyone is always about more exercise, more enrichment, more exercise, more enrichment. And I see all the time that this is just incredibly exhausted dogs manifested in the world. And we're just trying to entertain them and exercise them into not being exhausted. None of us would watch an insane toddler and be like, you know what, he needs to become a marathon runner and we need to give him more puzzles. We would put his butt down for a nap, right? Like we know that. And yet for some reason, people have no clue how much sleep dogs need. So for all of you who are out there going, okay, well, how much sleep do dogs need? Adult dogs, 3 years and older, need 17 to 18 hours of sleep a day, and puppies need more. And they don't self-regulate. They self-regulate when they're really young, but once they hit about 13 or 14 weeks, they kind of are moving into teenager land where they think they'll sleep when they're old. And they don't want to miss anything. They're more aware of their world. And so it's very, very easy for them to get crazy overtired. And then they get bitey and jumpy and mischievous and they don't listen to you. And then you put money in a dog trainer's pocket. So
Tina. So then,
yeah.
So how much? So if adult dogs need 17 to 18 hours of sleep and puppies need more, what are we talking about? 20 hours of sleep a day?
Generally more than that. So
in a 24-hour period, your dog should be up for about 2 hours total. That's what you're saying.
Young adolescent puppies, yeah, right. And what I would and I get that sounds insane. So stick with me. So the average dog during non-COVID, right, sleeps 8 hours at night, right, and they sleep 8 or 9 hours while the family's gone during the day. So now we're at 16 or 17, right? So think about your life with dogs. So when you worked a normal job, you came home, you made dinner, you fed the dog went outside, and then when everyone sat down in the evening, the dog took a nap. You went for a walk and then the dog slept for 2 hours. So all of a sudden, wow, we're banging on 19 hours of sleep. That's where we are. So I tell people a good place to start, and not all puppies read the manual, but a good place to start is, if you're referring to your puppy as how many weeks old he or she is, take the age in weeks and subtract 2, and that's how many minutes they're up at a time. I would say that holds true until puppies, you start referring to them as how many months old they are. And then I'm going to tell you it's going to be 15, 20 minutes until they're probably a year, maybe 10 months. And then I start going, okay, now it's going to be half an hour at a time. But I always let the dog's behavior be I let the dog inform that decision for me, right? If the dog is happy and behaving well rested, is a good citizen, then we're doing a good job. And if the dog is overwrought and angry and frustrated and fearful and all that stuff, a bunch of that can just be manifest from not getting enough sleep. And then, of course, nutrition, which we talk about a lot.
Right. I guess my other question, and thank you, Dina. Who the heck is Dina? Tina. How about Tina? Well, thank Tina for that explanation. I think that was nice and clear. And I would say that you have helped me with several of my clients to really get things changed around for them as we work more on getting more naps in for their dogs. So thank you for being such an advocate for sleep. You really have made me an advocate for sleep, and I think that's really helped a lot of the Central Ohio dogs. So,
well, and if you don't believe me, go watch some TED Talks on sleep, right? A bunch of that same stuff that applies to dogs applies to us. So the two big things that I hit on with families, because I don't get into all of it with them, it's too much, is serotonin is produced during deep sleep. So especially because so much of my practice is fearful dogs, lots of times fearful dogs are kind of hyper aware. And so they don't deeply sleep, and they will limit how much their serotonin production is. And then the other piece is there's not lymph nodes in the head. And so the way brain tissue gets cleaned of debris is during that deep sleep, where the amount of blood required by the brain is reduced, and then the tissue gets cleaned by spinal fluid. So if we don't have puppies or dogs that are deeply sleeping. It's a little bit like scraping off your plates and putting them back in the cupboard and then eating them off of them the next meal. So it makes learning more difficult, and it definitely degrades behavior. Any of us, actually, I mean, like, this is the Family Dog podcast, right? Like, every single mama or dad on listening to this, or grandpa listening to this podcast, has at some point been so tired that it changed who we are. Maybe we're not as kind to the world or as grace-filled as we would normally like to be. Like, I don't know about you, my best parenting moments did not come when I was exhausted. And so what I would say is, if you're having problems with a dog and you've tried exercise and you've tried enrichment and it's just either staying the same or getting worse, you might want to talk to somebody about how much sleep your dog's getting.
Yeah, no, I agree. And you know what? You could ask, my daughter's here at the moment, so you could ask her what my better parenting moments were if I was exhausted or when I was if I'd had, because there would be an objective opinion there. One of the things that I did want to ask Annelise was, having done puppyhood while being a full-time student, puppyhood is hard. Right? It's hard because you have to think about house training, and you have to think about socialization, and you have to think about, how do I manage nipping, and how do I manage all these other things. So would you say that in general for students, would it make a little bit more sense for them perhaps if they don't have a huge amount of time to maybe get an older dog that doesn't need house training? What would you say to that?
Absolutely. So another piece of why, things turned out so well for me and Bean was that I got her during the summer, and I had a summer job that was really flexible. They let me, I actually took like a week off just for getting settled. And then when I went back, like, I took a maternity leave basically. But then I went back, half days. So I would work for like 3 hours and then I would come home. And, I had the puppy pads and Bean's crate and stuff, but definitely, like, if it had happened during the semester and while I was taking 12 or 15 hours, like, definitely would have had to be an adult dog situation, just because, like, puppy pads are great, but you don't want them staying in their mess. They don't like that. And, at that time, I didn't know about a drop-through crate. So while there are tools to kind of mitigate those, the potty training situation, for me, I just felt better being able to be there often. And also, I have kind of a weird situation with potty training. So potty training was super easy for us, because Bean actually came like litter trained, and my aunt had this large cat that actually needed a dog litter box, if there is such a thing.
Yes, there is such a thing anymore as a dog litter box.
Well, apparently such a thing because I owned one. My aunt gave me her dog litter box, and that's what I kept it by the door on the tile, and I had actually set up an X pen there, so, like, if Bean wasn't going to be in her crate, or if I was out in the living room, that's kind of what her zone was going to be. And that's where the litter box was. So while I got to kind of choose when we were going to work on potty training outside in the grass, but at midnight, or 3 a.m, and she, let out her little poop cry, I could pick her up and we would just go to the litter box and she would do that. And it was kind of amazing that I didn't have to put on shoes in the middle of the night.
So this puppy litter training is like a big thing that I'm hearing more and more about. And it doesn't seem to have the same fallout that pee pads do, where the dog, right? So dogs attach where to eliminate on the strata they're on. Mm-hmm. And so I don't use pee pads because I don't want dogs urinating or defecating on fabric, right? Mm-hmm. But this litter, this doggy litter works great. Like, I know a bunch of breeders that they litter train the puppies. They send litter home with owners. And as the puppies are able to hold it for longer and longer periods of time, they move the litter outside and the puppies transition to grass beautifully. I don't think I knew you were doing that. You're so smart.
I'm not smart though. I was ashamed because like I had this one friend who she was a dog owner and she had her own ideas about she hadn't raised a puppy before, but she had a lot of opinions.
People ever are opinionated or judgmental. That never happens.
No, I mean you're right. I was
unprepared. Full of like everyone, like no one has a really strong opinion about any of this dog raising stuff.
No, they don't. And the other thing they don't have is an Uncle Joe who raised bloodhounds in the 30s. And he knows what he's doing. It's like, well, then, hire Uncle Joe.
Right. His dogs learned to stay in the yard because they got hit by cars and killed if they got it wrong.
Right.
Yeah, so that really taught the rest of the litter. Learn by example. Did you see what happened to Boffo? Man, he just got annihilated. So, I'm staying in the yard, dude. This happens. Okay.
Yeah. Just nose in it.
Right.
Yeah, so she would come over and be like...
So some chick shamed you?
Yeah, she's like, Bean's never going to be normal if she uses a litter box. And I'm like, I don't plan on her using a litter box forever, but, it's kind of fantastic right now. So I
got a Corgi. You didn't want normal.
Right, exactly. But, I mean, also, it was pretty awesome because, she was such a small dog. And whenever, we would go visit my mom, I could just bring my mom made her own version of the litter box with one of those 30 packs of Diet Coke, cardboard containers. She would line it and then I would just put litter on there. And Bean had that, at home. So I don't know where I was going with that, but it was fantastic. But I thought I was doing something wrong or something weird just because it wasn't normal.
Well, what I liked about that is the fact is that that means that while your puppy is still in the house training phase, right, you can go visiting other people because you have a manageable solution that they're not going to, take out your mom's carpeting. And so that allows you to socialize your puppy in a variety of ways. So it seems to me that the litter box training also facilitates early socialization, which is...
Yeah, and it actually is what helped me catch her her only UTI. And I got her to the vet a lot sooner than I might have when, I've also seen so many of Tina's clients that they're like, my dog is a little Tyrannosaurus Rex. What's happened? I broke my dog. And it's like, hi, it has a UTI. It feels terrible. Well, before I even knew about all that, because of the litter box situation, and I could tell she wasn't feeling good, I could definitely, when she went potty, I could, smell that something had, something was wrong. And we got to the vet, and sure enough, that was the problem. So, lots of benefits. And I'm glad to hear that, lots of breeders and people are doing this with their puppies, because, you do it for cats.
Right, why can't...
And you're going to be cleaning up after...
And it's biodegradable, right? So I actually think some of the magic of it is that we're not talking about cat kitty litter. That's not what it is. It's actually a recycled paper litter. So it biodegrades in the grass, which allows a puppy to transfer the learning. So they're walking around on this puppy litter that is slowly degrading over time into the grass and transitioning the puppy tactily as well as scent. So I think it's brilliant. I think it's such a good idea. And I just love that the universe has come up with new plans. I love Fresh Patch too. So for the people who don't want to use litter, I do recommend for families that are house training a puppy that, someone's not there constantly to take the puppy out. Fresh Patch is also a fantastic option. That's actual grass that you bring in the house. Although I will say that at about 13 weeks, puppies decide to become weed eaters. And that's when they're ready to go outside because they've now slung sod from one end of your kitchen to the other because it became great fun. But yeah, both of those things, it's amazing to me. It doesn't smell. The dogs transition really well. It's lovely. So I know, Annelise, because you're like the queen of organized, what else is on your list of things that you wanted to tell folks?
Well, identifying UTI, sleep, enrichment, is like one of my favorite things ever, but kind of something funny that I wish I had known or just like realized when I got a puppy. All of the research that I did, all the books that I read, all the blogs that I read, I must have missed this, but teething. That was a shock when we were playing tug of war and a tooth came out in the rope. And I was like, what has happened? You have a hole in your mouth and there is a small tooth in my hand. Like, what is going on? So
did you think you broke her?
Oh yeah, I was traumatized. There was like a little bit of blood. She was fine. Everything's great. And I'm like, where'd your teeth go?
I don't think you texted me about it. You must have researched that on your own.
No, I didn't. Well, so before, this was like pre-dog owning research that I had done. So This was the phase where I was like picking you and trying to understand dog food, which is another thing. But like this, like, and there was like a 2-week period where I had her and like we hadn't started dog class yet because vaccines and.
Well, that's when all the really bad stuff that's a part of who Bean is, like all the negative things happened in that 2 weeks.
Of course.
That's when you did that. We're just going to blame you for any bold imperfections.
It's literally all my fault.
So
that's where.
One thing I would say about teething, though, is that for most people, they don't even see the teeth. I mean, like Clementine went through teething, and I never saw any of her teeth. I think she just swallowed them all or spit them out in the yard or something. So, yeah, so I think it is unnerving when you do see it.
Don't see blood.
But, yeah.
Right, they see blood on a little bony or they see blood on a toy and they panic a little bit. But yeah.
Most of the time you don't see the teeth.
You do sometimes find teeth.
Right.
But lots of times people are like, well, so it amazes me how many people are like, oh, my 10-week-old puppy is teething. I'm like, no, like I love you. It's not, like it won't be teething until it's 16 weeks old. Like, no, it's not teething. It's biting because it's tired. So okay, Annelise, sorry we interrupted you.
Oh no, that was just one of those obvious things.
So how did you pick a trainer?
I Googled like dog training Athens, and you were one of the first that came up. I was looking for like location and convenience that way, but also accessibility because like I was hoping I was going to find somebody that I could like establish a relationship with because I knew I was going to have a lot of questions and needs. And it was between you and PetSmart because they had dog training. But I chose you because I read reviews and your name was hilarious to me. It happens, like, lol. But the reviews and stuff really did help me kind of make the choice that way. But it started with, like, convenience and then narrowing down to, like, quality. Because, again, I didn't know what I was looking for from talking to the other families and, like, the family friend that raises the Cardigans. They're really involved in the AKC and stuff. So I knew to look for like Star Puppy and all the AKC like training things. So I knew about Canine Good Citizen and all that fun stuff. And I saw those badges on your website. And then I went to puppy class, met you, and laughed very hard. And here we are. So one other thing that I would say to new puppy raisers or just new dog owners in general is like you can shop for, vets and training and stuff as much as you want to ahead of time. But I wish that I had, just being, my age, I guess, I wish I had been a little more assertive when I was meeting with the first vet that we were going to. We were going to a vet school clinic, which was great. They made us feel very cared for. But I had read about different cycles for vaccines. And I particularly wanted to wait a year or after Bean's first heat to have her spayed. And that was something that I agreed to with the breeder as well. But this particular vet practice was like very adamant that I spay her starting at like 4 months. And every time we'd go in for something, they would keep asking about it. And one time they actually drew blood without my permission, and then they asked me to sign the paper for them to like test the blood that they had already taken, and like it was going to cost me another like $50. And I was like, she doesn't need her blood tested, we're not spaying right now. And I had asked about like spacing out her vaccines, and they were like, you don't need to do that, she has to have these. And I'm like, I'm not talking about not vaccinating my dog. It's just like, is there a way that this could be made better for her? And they just didn't. They were doing what they were supposed to be doing. Like the vet students were, they're doing their job, but I just needed something. I needed more. I needed to feel like I had more agency in that relationship with my vet. So I did. I talked to Tina, our trainer, and she recommended a different vet practice, and that place has been wonderful. They listen to me. They explain. If it's not the vet herself, it's the vet tech that will explain everything from a Seresto collar to, a procedure and how dental and stuff works. And being a first-time dog owner, I used to be kind of embarrassed at some of the stupid questions I felt like I was asking. But after the very first time I met with them when Bean had an issue, like I never felt ashamed. Like I always felt comfortable. And that's how I had wanted to feel from the very beginning. So, we should be able to take ownership of our dog's healthcare and be able to kind of trust that we have a working relationship with our vets. So that was really important for me.
And I think that you're not saying that, the vet school practice is bad. It just wasn't a good fit for you. And Bean had specialized care. Like we were all super grateful that the university was here as a resource, right? So
there's no beef with the vet school. I just think if I had been a more experienced dog owner and been more confident and understood what I was asking for, I could have just said, no, I would like to do this, and not felt like I was being pushed into things or not being heard. It's because, I think I was so just kind of clueless, and somebody needed to take charge. So it's definitely not any issue with them. Like they were lovely, but I think,
this is a better fit.
It was a better fit as a first-time dog owner to be in a different kind of practice.
Yeah. And I mean, I'll say, like, I'm on forums all the time. There are as many different kinds of vets as there are different kinds of pediatricians or attorneys, right? Like, each practice is going to have its own flavor. And I did recommend to you the vet that I thought would be the best fit for you. I might, for a different customer, recommend a completely different vet because somebody else might be a better fit for what that person's looking for. And to be clear, my dogs have multiple vets, right? Like we have a primary practice we use, and then we have specialty vets that we utilize for any of the assorted ways my dogs try to murder themselves. So I think it's important to feel like, so I always frame it as I want a partner in my dog's wellness first. So for me, I want a practice that's focusing on keeping dogs well, not treating diseases that we come up with, and then managing healthcare beyond that. So not all practices are that way. Lots of practices are kind of like, you do these things in order, and that's principally what we do. And it's not as, I guess, curated is probably a good phrase. Well, I want to thank you for coming on. And I am going to, again, and I'm not saying this because I love you, I'm saying this because it's true. I deal with a lot of college students who are getting new dogs, and most of them do pretty well. Like they've thought it through pretty well, and they've done, a good job in all sorts of different ways, whether they got a puppy or they're fostering or they got an adult dog. I also think that you should hear that you were easily in like the top 2% of being prepared, which is why Julie and I wanted to invite you, was because you went above and beyond. And if everyone would do it the way that you did it, dogs and families and owners would feel more successful because they would avoid suffering that can be avoided. And I think part of what makes you and Bean the magic that is you and Bean is that you did a really beautiful job investing and being patient and putting off wanting to impulsively get a dog this very instant to wait for the right dog and the right time.
And I would agree. From everything that he has told me and what you've said, I would hold you up as the standard by which I would ask anybody to follow when getting a dog. So you did a great job. Bean looks like a great dog. I saw him trot in a couple of times. He's a really adorable little guy. And so congratulations on doing it right. And it makes it for a lifetime of learning and love with your dog. So thank you so much for joining us, Annelise. And we'll see you next time on Your Family Dog.
Thanks for listening to Your Family Dog. Got questions? Interesting ideas? Visit www.yourfamilydogpodcast.com to share your thoughts.